Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello. Welcome to my show, the Perfect Life Awakening Show, and we're having a little technical difficulty right now with our guest, so I'll just chat for a bit until we get her back on. Last week, I was telling you guys about my adventure with my broken hip, and it's been quite an adventure because now we've added 8 feet of snow up here. So it's really been interesting, but I'm doing so much better. But like I said, it's been quite a journey. I think that one of the things I talked about last week was how I always look at situations that I'm going through in terms of the lessons that they provide. And I was telling you all kinds of lessons I learned from all this, including karmic cleanups and awakenings of deeper levels of denial and all kinds of interesting things. But this week, what I learned is, wow, trusting the process. That is, I think, something that we're all here to do. And my guest will talk a little bit more about that as well. But trusting the process, knowing that, this is a very rural area that I live in, and there's maybe 6 or 8 houses, and they're all spread out, and we're all just, kind of living up here in ruralness. And when this whole snow thing happened, everybody started helping each other. It was kind of like, we don't even need to know anything about you. We don't need to know your political viewpoint, your religion, nothing. None of it mattered because we all were here with the same purpose and the same needs. Some of us didn't have food. Some of us didn't have firewood. Some of us didn't have a way to get out. All of those things, and everybody worked together. We had one guy that said, come on over, I'm making hot toddies and nachos, and everybody went over there. It was just really wonderful. I think that emergencies like this really bring out the best in people. It's kind of sad that that's what it takes, but that's what it seemed to do. So I just think that all of us are here to learn some big lessons. And I always talk about that in my Perfect Life Awakening courses, that we're here to learn some big lessons about ourselves, about love, about getting in touch with who we really are. And it just, whatever it takes, the universe just hands us situations and says, here you go, whatever it takes to wake you up. So we're still working on getting my amazing guest out here, and let's see what else I can talk about while we wait for her. Well, I'll just introduce her, even though she's not here. Lauren Abrams. She is a lawyer, and I think it's really interesting that I have now interviewed a couple of different lawyers because I think that particular type of profession, we generally think of lawyers as really kind of, logical thinkers, and they wouldn't be interested in spirituality or enlightenment or any of the things that I'm interested in and that a lot of my listeners are interested in. But this particular lawyer had a very interesting experience that I'll let her tell you about. and she went through kind of a dark night of the soul. And because of that, she got in touch with hope, which is kind of the opposite of the dark night of the soul. But that brought her to an awareness of the importance of hope. And why is it that some of us can't feel hopeful? What is it that gets triggered in us that takes away that feeling of, yeah, things can get better? So out of that experience, she wrote a book called 52 Weeks of Hope. And it's a really interesting book. And she also has a really interesting little quiz on her website that helps you get in touch with perhaps stuff that is self-sabotaging you. And why is that? So hopefully, as soon as she's able to log on, she'll talk about all that. But she is the founding member and managing partner of the law offices of Lauren Abrams. And she's been protecting the rights of workers in all kinds of ways, employees, wrongful termination, whistleblower, retaliation, leaves of absences, disability discrimination, pregnancy discrimination, race and or age discrimination, national origin discrimination, racial harassment, sexual harassment, etc., etc., etc. And I just think it's fascinating that out of that profession, she experienced this personal dark night of the soul and got in touch with the importance of hope. I talk a lot about hope in my courses that I do. I have some interesting thoughts about it that I'd like to talk to Lauren about when she gets here. If she gets here, hopefully she will get. There she is. As soon as I said hopefully, there you arrived. I don't know if you were able to hear what I was saying about you.
I've been rebooting my computer, so I apologize so much. I didn't know how, that was the only thing I could do, but it worked.
That's okay, because there's hope.
Always hope. There is.
Gave you a long introduction and was about to run out of things to say. So here you popped. So I was telling everybody that you're a lawyer and that you help people in so many ways. And yet you went through your own kind of dark night of the soul that brought you to an understanding of hope, what it's really about, the importance of it. So I want you, now that I've talked everybody's ear off, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how this whole thing got started with hope with you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love talking about how my podcast came about, and I love researching you and everything that you do to help people actually kind of get there yourself. So and get to their truth. So we all go through it. I mean, nobody escapes this life unscathed. Yes. So I went through my dark night of the soul, and I'm somebody who's always grateful. I just consider myself very lucky. Years and years ago, and because you never know what anybody's going through or where they've been. I always say that everyone has a story. There's people that have worked for me in the past. I tend to have people who work for me for long periods of time. But one person in particular was like, oh, Beverly Hills lawyer, this and that. No, I do not come from that. I am somebody who at one point decades ago, I was on the streets, strung out, just hope to die, drug addict, alcoholic. And that I got out of that slowly. I got hope a long time ago, so to speak, and slowly got an education and so I've always been grateful for my life. Like, I can't believe, I have this life and these fabulous kids and all of that. So I've always, every single day, grateful, always giving back, never forget where I've come from. So when I went through my dark night of the soul, which I did not pen that, that's what I was told it's called. I just was like, what the hell was that? When I went through it, I was surprised because I'm always so grateful for my life. And I didn't want to complain because there's homeless, there's this, there's that, but it was hard. It was really hard. And I didn't know how I was going to feed my kids for a while, even though I have a thriving practice. I have, at that point, I mean, I've got a mortgage. I have people who work for me. I have all this stuff going on, and it got really bad. It got bleak, and so when I got through it, and I was like, what the hell was that? Because like I said, the only way through is through. I thought, then I went through, why are we here? and
all
what's
about.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what we go through, then we live life, and then we'll go through something else, and then we get through it, and I'm like, what's the point? What's the meaning of life? And then I went through and I thought, I'm going to ask a much older demographic just that question. They say nobody on their deathbed wished they made more money or worked harder. So what have you gleaned from living life? I need to know. And so I decided I'm not a DIYer. So I thought I'll interview a person a week for a year for me, a much older demographic, and ask them that question. And it's pre-pandemic. So I started doing just that. I'm not a DIYer, but this is as close as I came to DIYing, if that's a word. And anyway, and people would reveal just the most personal information to me. And it was so rich and it was so good. After about 2.5 months, I started noticing common themes. And I would go home and I would write up what they told me, and in my own verbiage that was kind of funny, not making fun of them funny, and just in my own way. And I thought, I'll write one of those books where you open it up and you're like, that's just what I needed to hear. Or you close the book and you open it again. You're like, no, that's just what I need to hear. And I'll call it 52 Weeks of Hope. And then the pandemic hit. And so I pivoted, because that's what we do in life. We pivot. And I started podcasting. And suddenly I wasn't confined to Los Angeles. I could interview people anywhere. And I fell in love with podcasting. And it's just been so incredible. But what I did do, after I took my first 52 weeks episodes, and I compiled, because I ask everybody what the hardest challenge they've ever gone through, how'd they get through it, and to give a message of hope. And I took the first 52 weeks messages of hope, and I compiled them into 8 overarching themes, and I call it the meaning of life. I'm like, okay, now I know. And yeah, because it really, like, there are some common themes and common messages.
Can you I've got so many questions right now, but
Go.
Since
you're talk too long.
Common themes, can you tell us what those themes are?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be terribly surprising to very many people, but one of the biggest theme is community. We are not meant to isolate and to be alone. We are meant to be in a pack, which I know horrifies many people. And in fact, I work from home now. I'm alone a lot, and I talk about this so much. And I myself have trouble being in groups again and doing all of this. And it takes a lot for me to even do that. Texting doesn't count. That is not being together. Or I could spend a couple hours even talking to you, and you and I could get to know each other really well, and we'll feel like we're connected. It doesn't count. Like being on a screen doesn't count. We actually need to physically be with each other. It's the blue zones where people live the longest, the happiest, and the healthiest. Because what do you want to live a long time if you're not happy and healthy? It's because of community. They're together. So.
Before you came on, I was talking about my experience up here. I live in a very rural area, and we've been inundated. We were declared a disaster area because of 8 feet of snow, and how everybody in this little area, there's maybe 8 or 10 houses up here. We all got together and we're helping each other and supporting each other. There's nothing that feels better. It's so incredible. And you're right, texting doesn't count.
No. Oh, I love that. I got goosebumps. See, that lights me up. That makes me really happy. I love hearing that, because it's all about love and service is the next one. It's helping each other. And when I go and I'm of service to someone else, I never want to do it. Never. Never. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be in traffic. I don't want to, I'm busy. I'm this. I'm in my head, and 100% of the time, I feel fabulous afterwards.
Yes.
100% of the time.
Yes.
I mentored a girl in downtown LA. She was very high achieving in a very underperforming area, I'll just say. And she'd never met anybody who had even been to college. She wouldn't know how to do the college applications. And my kids were eye-rolling teens and didn't want to hear anything I had to say at the time. And I jumped at the opportunity because I overcame my challenges and I was able to get to school, and I went to UCLA on a scholarship and everything else. And I was able to help her through 11th, 12th grade, just mentor her and take her to restaurants. She'd never been to restaurants, which is, there's a family of 4 living on less than $10,000 a year in one room. Wow. Extreme poverty. And anyway, she graduated top of her class, got into a University of California school on full scholarship and everything else. And, but I never wanted to go. Never. Downtown LA in traffic, rush hour. And I always was so lit up after seeing her. She's so cute and everything else. Going to feed homeless. Like, who wants to do that? But you're with all these people and there's camaraderie, and it's like you always feel good after you do things. Seeing the light come on in other people. Yeah.
I did that for several years. We would go down to Venice and bring big pots of vegetarian food. And again, never wanted to do it. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Oh my God. And we'd get there and these people would have these conversations and we would find out who they are and what their story was. It was always heartwarming, always.
Always. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So what about you said you had 8 themes. So
yeah. Life's in session. If there's something you really want to do it. Life is in session. This is it. It's not a test run or anything else. And right now I'm even doing confidence and clarity boost sessions for people for free. Like because if you're like me and you want to do everything, yeah, it is important to get kind of clear on what fills you up, what brings you joy.
Yeah.
I interviewed one person who talks about perfectionism and procrastination being the flip side of the same coin, which always makes me pause because I'm not a perfectionist. I'm just happy when I get something done. And but I always think about that a lot, that a lot of people won't start something unless they can do it perfectly. Like, do it. Just take action. Once you start taking action in the direction of something you really want to do, just that energy, the universe starts rising up to meet you and people appear. And I don't know how that works, but it does. It just does.
Power of intention. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that was something I was going to ask you about. And I really don't mean to invalidate the concept of hopefulness, but I see the flip side of that as well. It's kind of like when you're sitting in hope, do you still take action, or can you just get drowning yourself in that? Oh, I'm just going to hope that everything.
No, I was taught God doesn't drive parked cars. You can't sit in a corner and hope for something. You have to take action. That's why I said life's about action. You have to take action.
Yes.
You have to take some kind of action, even if it's 10 minutes of action a day. You can't just journal away what you want to do. You can journal to get clarity. And it's one of the best. I believe journaling and meditation are the best tools there are.
Absolutely.
But you have to take action towards your dreams. You can't just sit and wish that something's going to fall in your lap.
I know a lot of spiritual disciplines just say, well, just have the intention and send it out and the manifestation will happen. But I find that you've got to take action. You really do.
Oh, yeah. If you're not talking to people and out there and you got to do something. You can't just I like the way I was told it. God doesn't drive parked cars. I don't care what you want to call it, your higher power or the universe or energy or whatever. It's one syllable. It's quicker. It's 3 letters. I had a lot of problems with that word, before, but now it's just easier.
Yeah. So what are the other
that all modalities work. I don't care if you're doing EFT, tapping, yoga, meditation, whatever you're called to, it works. All of them. I've learned breath work, all of them. They all work. And if you want to switch them up, whatever you feel called to, do it. And you don't have to do all of them. That's that whole shiny object syndrome. Like, you don't have to do them all, because they do all work. But and another message is, we are a resilient species. I have listened to stories of what people have been through, and by the way, you don't have to be a Holocaust survivor. You don't have to have your children die. You don't have to, like, we all suffer how we suffer.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, nobody gets through this life unscathed. Some people hear my story and they go, "Oh my God, I would never be able to get through that." Well, that's probably why you didn't go through it. I listened to some of your stories. I'm like, I could never get through that. And so, we all go through what we go through, and, that it's our path.
Yeah.
And they say we got our childhoods because it gave us the tools to get through what we could go through.
Yeah. I remember when I first started teaching, I had a couple they were taking my class, and they would come in and they would talk about what I'm putting air quotes, what the horrible things that they were going through. And I would sit there and I'd listen and I'd be like, wow, it was just nothing compared to what other people were going through. And I learned the hard way that everybody has their own definition of struggle. Everybody has their own way of going through life, and that I can't judge what somebody else's struggle looks like. There's no way, even though to me it was like, you're
I know.
out because, and I remember this distinctly, they had just gotten married and they were freaking out because they didn't send their thank you notes soon enough. And
my husband's not going to hear this.
Tragic.
Yeah. Like,
yeah, so that's very true. We all, we're all going through what we're going through. And as I said in the beginning, when you weren't here, we all have specific lessons to learn. We're all here to learn certain things, and whatever it takes to wake us up is what it takes.
Yeah, I guess it took a lot to wake me up. It takes a lot for me. Like, hello.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
But
so okay, so there's more little
yeah. Okay, so don't listen to the negative, and don't surround yourself by naysayers. There's so many people that'll lift you up and make you feel great. There is no reason to listen to the negative voices in your head, or to surround yourself. I mean, I understand there may be family members or something like that are not necessarily your best advocates, but surround yourself with people that say that is such a good idea, or that help you find the way to achieve what it is that you want to do, that lift you up. Because if you've got this idea and this dream of something you want to do, there's a reason that was put in your mind, in your head. I mean, we all have our own unique handprint. And like, and then when you start, the imposter syndrome and all that stuff that's a natural. Once you start going in the direction of your dream, that's going to pop up like, oh, who do I think I am? Somebody else is already doing it. Well, yeah, but not the way you can do it. Right. That's where your own unique handprint comes in. I could say that about podcasting. There's how many gazillion, whatever. But nobody can write the way you can write. Nobody can use your voice. Nobody can do your art. Everyone has their own way of doing it, and everyone can't receive my message the way the people who are supposed to receive it are going to receive it. And so don't listen to people who are negative about it. There's a reason you've been given your gifts. So go after your dream, and try to keep those people at bay, and don't tell them your dream if you know they're negative. Don't feed that.
So how do you feel about, because I teach that everything that is thrown at us, or anything that pushes our buttons or triggers us, is trying to get us to face something about ourselves. Like, for example, I started a store, an earth-friendly gallery and handcrafted shop several years ago. Wow. And everybody was negative about it. Everybody, especially my family. And they just thought I was crazy. And
I think that's so fabulous.
Yeah, it was fabulous. But instead of listening to my mom say, oh, you're crazy, you're never going to make a dime, blah, 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 all the stuff that she said, I just use that to get in touch with what do I need to see about myself and my beliefs about not being able to make money doing this? And what do I need to face about myself that says I don't deserve to do this? So I used it as fodder. I guess that's the right word.
I mean, I would just say, "Oh, thank you," and just move on. I mean, I don't know how much of that I would be able to take. I'm too sensitive.
Yeah.
I would not surround myself by too many people. I really I can't listen to too much of that. I try
Yeah.
not to surround myself by very many negative people these days. I don't have the energy or the time for it. Life's short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm getting a lot of it, and if a lot of my buttons are being pushed, I meditate a lot. And
Yeah.
in fact, I'm in a 2-year mindfulness meditation teacher training with Tara Brock and Jack Hornfield. So anyway, but yeah, I putting your hand on your heart, and I know my truth. I mean, I have to feel my feelings. Or else it's going to come out in my health. Like
Right.
you have to feel your feelings.
Yeah.
And I don't want health issues. So, but I just say thank you. I go, okay, thank you. Move on. I don't. Yeah. I mean, I like to think I've worked through my limiting beliefs at this point.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Well,
I mean, they're always coming up. You're always working through something. It's all
yes,
peeling the onion.
that is true. Yeah. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk with Lauren Abrams, the author of 52 Weeks of Hope. I'm going to talk to her a little bit more about what is hope really? And we'll get into a little bit of depth about that. So we'll be right back. And thanks so much for being here.
OMTimes TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. OMTimes Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, OMTimes offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an OMTimes magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on OMTimes TV and broadcasting it across the extensive OMTimes radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. OMTimes. Open yourself to the possibilities. Transform your life from triggered to empowered with the Perfect Life Awakening program. Royce Morales' extraordinary, enlightening, spiritually based teachings that get to the core of subconscious underlying motivations driving your life. With more than 4 decades as a transformational facilitator and author, Royce Morales offers ways to awaken your deserving, authentic existence, free from paralyzing issues, repetitive patterns, and programmed fears, while simultaneously awakening your spiritually aware higher consciousness, purposeful self. Perfect Life Awakening offers remote group classes and one-on-one sessions to explore even deeper levels. Check out Royce Morales' books, Want, True Love, Past Lives, and Other Complications. No, a Spiritual Wake-Up Call. And Back, Rebirth After Stroke. Learn more about Perfect Life Awakening and Royce Morales. Visit roycemorales.com.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. I just got a little note from Lauren I'm so sorry. I thought it was a book. I thought 52 Weeks of Hope was a book, but it's a podcast, and I do apologize for that confusion. So I want to, as I said before the break, I want to talk a little bit more about the depth of the word hope, because I think that it's something that we just kind of go, oh yeah, I'm hoping to get this Christmas present, or I'm hoping to meet the man of my dreams, or I'm hoping to feel better tomorrow. But how do you really define the word hope?
Well, when I talk about hope, it's that glimmer of light. Like all of your being doesn't have to hope. It's something, it's what keeps you going. I mean, when you're in the darkness, you just need, I'm going to use illegal. You just need 51%, you don't have to be 100% hopeful.
Yeah.
You need a glimmer. You can borrow somebody else's hope when you don't have it. It's that thing that gets you out of bed when, I'm not talking total depression here. I'm not talking clinical depression. I'm not talking something like that. It's when you just feel
Yeah.
and you're like, ugh. And so you get up. One of my first guests, Amanda Payton, she does such a good job of talking about, so I get up and my goal is I'm going to wash 5 dishes because that's what I was told I needed to do. And so she gets up and she washes 5 dishes and puts them in the dishwasher, or washes the 5, whatever. It's been a couple of years now. And then she makes a call because you got to connect. You have to connect. And so you call somebody. And there's a couple things with calling somebody. You can call someone and tell them what's going on because you don't want to not have somebody to touch base with. But also calling somebody else and saying, how are you? Is really an incredible experience, because when you're listening to how they're doing, you quit thinking about yourself, and then you're totally invested in them and going, oh, wow. And suddenly you don't feel as bad. And that's the service element. It's probably people trapped up by you when they're checking on you and finding out, oh, you broke your hip. That must be really hard for you to get around when they're worried about how they're going to get somewhere or something like that. And this is totally, I'm making it up, but I'm just saying that whatever they were worried about, well, at least they don't have maybe a broken hip they're recovering from. I mean, that's got to be so difficult. And so suddenly they're not as concerned about whatever they were concerned about. That's just an example. Okay.
Right.
So there's so many levels and elements of it. So all of this it gives you hope. You might not use that word, but it's the light. And the thing is, when people ask me what my message of hope is, it's that everything always works out. I've interviewed enough people to know it might not be, it never is on mine. It might not be on our timeline or the way we think it will, but it just does. And the examples I would give might depress some people because it's about people who've lost kids and stuff like that, which I think is the worst. So I just think it's the worst thing that could happen to someone. So just the wrong order and all that, but they're okay. Like they are okay today. So that so anyway.
Yeah. Couple of things. When you were saying being present for somebody that is going through something and it takes you out of yourself, I find that that's so true. But I also find, and I've been teaching for over 4 decades, and I find that people always land in my lap in some way that are going through something that I need to look at as well. So they might be going through something that looks completely different than what I'm going through, but it brings up something in me so that I can address myself as well as them. And it always, it never ceases to amaze me how that happens. It's really,
it's an amazing thing. Like you're talking to somebody, you're like, maybe I need to look at this too. What a coincidence, not coincidence,
like no
coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. Is that the saying? Yeah, right.
Yes. And the other thing I was thinking about as you're talking, and this is something that I do teach a lot in my class, that whatever we're not resolved with just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think that hopelessness is probably the hardest thing for us as humans to look at. So several years ago, I went through a period of my life where nothing was working. My store wasn't working. My classes weren't working. Everything was just a mess. And I finally realized that, wow, I need to look at hopelessness, because there's a part of me that just goes into this place, like you were saying, that dark place of hopelessness. And I'm afraid to look at it. I'm afraid to admit how hopeless I feel. So it took probably a year of really deep digging, big shovels, to look at how hopeless I really felt underneath. Oh, look at me, everything's great. But there was another part of me that I needed to address. It was terrifying. It really was. So how do you feel about that? Is that something that you think people need to really get in touch with so they can resolve it?
I mean, I think that's an individual thing. I don't think I need to look at, I've been hopeless.
Yeah.
I don't need to look at that again. I've been there. So I mean, that's completely up to a person. I think you need to feel what you're going through.
Yes.
Definitely you have to feel it completely. This course I'm going through is certainly helping everyone, and through meditation and journaling. I mean, just write. You can write a question if you're unsure of what's going on. Or, I mean, half the time I'll Google feelings chart, and I'll look at it. There's a lot of feelings. And we didn't grow up talking about them. So I'll Google feelings chart and I'll look at them all and I'll be like, oh yeah, I think it's that. But sometimes if I don't know what's going on, I'll just write the question at the top of a page and then I'll start journaling for a few minutes about it. And the truth comes out in just writing. They say freehand writing is writing from your heart. And so just doing that will get the truth out. And, but I don't know. There's a lot of uncover, discover, discard. You uncover what's going on, you discover what it is, and then you get to work through it and discard it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And I think what you said is important, because we're really not taught to feel our emotions, especially, like I said, especially that hopelessness, because wow, if I let myself
hopeless seems like a dangerous place to go to. I mean, that seems like you don't want to go there by yourself. You would want some professional help if you're going to go. That's not, especially right now in this day and age, it seems a little dangerous. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, in my humble opinion, I think it's more dangerous to not let ourselves get in touch with that, because we're kind of like, it's like that little program running in the background going, but really, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
That could be sadness. It could be a lot of things. It could be like, it could be fear that it's not going to work. Like, look at all the fear or the limiting beliefs and things like this. But hopeless is, I don't know. To me, that's a little scary.
Yeah. It was definitely, like I said, it was definitely scary to get in touch with that and to get to the roots of it. Why is it that I feel so hopeless? Why is it that I can't hold on to that empowered sense of deserving and manifestation and all that stuff?
And those are limiting beliefs. Those are really, really limiting beliefs. That's old stuff. Those are old limiting beliefs, in my opinion, that need to be worked through. That seems like a better way to look at it than hopeless. Right. Again, I've been, when I was strung out, when I was like, I've been very hopeless. And I don't forget what that's like ever. Yeah.
So another question that just came to mind is, what about, I think there's a part of us as humans that is always waiting to be rescued. How does that fit with hopelessness? Is there a part of us that just kind of is waiting to be rescued or saved? What are your thoughts about that? I'll just kind of leave it at that.
I think that's individual too. Again, take action.
Mhm.
Take action. Take action towards your dreams. Nobody there. If you're rescued, there's no such thing as a free ride. I mean, it's not going. You're not going to be rescued any way you want to be rescued. I've never. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think we need to be very specific about what we want. I was taught, you mentioned the word manifestation a few times, that we have to be very specific about what we want. If you want a partner, what does that partner look like? Make a list. What qualities does that partner have? Make a very detailed list. I don't drink coffee, but how it was explained to me was when you go to a coffee shop, people are very explicit. I want an iced latte with milk and hold this and give me that. Like, people are very specific about their coffee. Will be very specific with the universe too. And I was taught, not if you want monogamous, if you want straight, if you want whatever, like, be very specific. Do you want someone family oriented? Do you want somebody who's healthy? Do you want somebody who's spiritual, or all your friends are spiritual, so it doesn't really matter? Do you want somebody who's employed? Or do you want someone retired? Like, what do you want?
Mhm.
Do you want somebody? It was important that I had somebody who respected me and that I respected, because I'm easily bored. So, and I knew that about me. So I wanted somebody that I respected too. And this is a long time ago, but I had a very exhaustive list. And that was back then. I have a fabulous husband today, but back then I made a list for my life and my career. Where do I want to work? What do I want the work to look like? Do I want to work from home? Do I want to be around nature? Do I want to be around animals? What kind of people do I want to work with? Do I want to work only 2.5, 3 days a week? How much money do I want to make? Make it big.
Yes.
Make it great. And be very specific. Be very clear. So rescued is not going to be on that list. I mean, rescued from what? No.
Exactly.
Like, and then looking at that list, what's an action? Who's doing that? Okay, send an email, DM them, whatever, and say, how did you start doing that?
Yeah.
People love sharing how they started doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to invent the wheel.
Yeah. It's funny. It's interesting, as you're talking, I'm being brought back to when I was dating. After my divorce, I started dating, and I was just starting to get into my spiritual growth, etc. And I decided to start making a list of all that I wanted in my relationships. And every time I would add something to the list, a man would appear, and he would fit with every single thing in the list, until the very last time that I wrote one final thing on the bottom of my list. And that was, he loves to give massages and doesn't want them in return. And that's when my husband arrived. And we've been married for 37 years. And he actually went to school and became a massage therapist, and hated receiving massages, but loved giving them. I mean, that's as specific as you can get on
That
these.
is. Yeah. I was taught to only do the positive, but that's very good.
Because I hate giving massages.
That's so funny.
So, yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that is.
Yeah. So another question that comes to mind is, what about, it's one thing to live from a place of hope, and I think it's great. But what about knowing when to let go? Knowing when it's time to close that business, or it's time to leave that guy. What about that? Where does that fit in?
That's when you're ready to quit, like hang on by your fingernails, right? Like, wait, what was, oh gosh, I was given, you know what? Heard such a good, like, if you're holding on to rope for too long, you get rope burn or something. Like, I heard something so good about this that I never heard before. Or clawing on like your fingernails. Yeah, I mean, get quiet. Like, nobody's going to be able to tell you. Everybody's been there. Please, when you should have left, you can look back at your life. I don't care how old you are. I mean, my daughter is 22, and I could ask her. I don't need to answer for her. You could ask her that question. were you in a relationship that long, too long? Just little teenage, boyfriend thing. And everybody knows when they should have let go earlier.
Yeah.
You don't need somebody else to tell you. Was it a business? Was it, if you get honest with yourself,
If you get honest with yourself.
and not listen to someone else, because it's your innermost self. I just interviewed somebody who was Steve Jobs' assistant right out of college for years. Naz Bashanti. And she wrote a book. Steve Jobs came to her in a dream vividly with his face and everything and said, you need to write a book. And she wrote a book. It's this week's episode. Her book is called Pause, because that's the whole thing. Pause something else. Because if we pause and we're quiet, then we know the answer. But that doesn't mean we're going to take action. If we're people in a bad relationship, you look at your friends and you're like, oh my God, please get out. But you can't tell someone.
Yeah.
They'll when they're done, they're done. You can't you just love them until they're done. You can't tell somebody close up shop. You're losing money. What are you doing? Yeah, I mean, when somebody's done, they're done.
When it feels right, in other words. Versus, I got to get out of here because I can't stand this. Or
if you don't like it, I mean, yeah. Like, when you want to do something. If something fills you with joy, it's right. If it's not filling you with joy anymore, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, it could also be, like I was saying before, that maybe it's not filling me with joy, but I know that I'm sticking with this because I've made a commitment, and because this is helping me clean things up, and this is teaching me things, and and then when it's done, versus I'm out of here, I can't stand this.
Well, I mean, you have to do things responsibly, but none of those sounded like very good reasons.
Yeah.
It's teaching me things. I don't know.
I find that if we run from something, it's going to find us again.
Right. There's a difference between running and it's run its course.
Yes. Yeah. Choosing because it's complete. It's done.
Yeah.
One feels peaceful. The other feels like,
Yeah. If you're running from it, you're just going to repeat it again.
Definitely.
I thought I had interviewed people of every modality. And then I just interviewed somebody who does family constellations therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and everybody's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, I never heard of this one before. I was just relieved to hear you only had to go back 2 generations to clear up your old stuff, because I'm like, well, what if you don't know your family? She's like, you only had to go back to grandparents. I was like, okay. Yeah. No, she's very well known, I guess. So I like, seriously, I had never heard of this. I don't know how many more modalities there are.
Oh gosh,
I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, that made me think of that, because I'm like, maybe it's just like old stuff that needs to be cleared up from your past.
Definitely, yeah. So you've been interviewing 52 weeks of people. Is there one that just really stands out that you can share about?
Oh my gosh, I love, and I wanted to look it up because I thought, oh, you're going to ask me this question. I wanted to look up what number. I've been going now 130 some weeks in a row now. I went way past one. I went way past 52. But I interviewed, and I slightly stalked her because I liked her so much. But she talks about friendships as adults and how to make friends. And I just found it so fascinating. And because it's different. It's totally different. It's not like it's just different. And so we have to be vulnerable. You can't just do name, rank, and serial number. You have to be vulnerable with each other. You have to plan things. You have to go to events where you have common interests. There's different ways to make friendships as adults. And she also talked about, she's a professor, and she talked about, she teaches this, and she has a great TED Talk and everything else. And her name is going to come back to me in a minute. I don't know why it just left, but Marissa Franco. That's her name. And I will I'll get her what episode number it is, but it's a couple months ago. But she has 2 classes that she teaches. They're identical classes, and one class, all the students gelled. They're all tight and everything else. The other one, nothing. And she's trying to figure out what it was about this one class. And it's because the class has a social igniter. And what happens is at the end of class, this one person that she calls a social igniter says, hey, let's all get something to eat. Takes one person to do something really inclusive like that.
Wow.
And the class is completely gelled. They're all buds. And she said, so all you need is one social igniter. And yeah, right. Isn't that? And I thought that was really something. You just need a social igniter.
Huh.
And I like talking about the fact that when I went to Parents Weekend for my son, he's a sophomore in college. I thought I went to he's at a private school, and I went to this small parents thing. And I thought I have nothing in common with these parents. They're all whatever, in my head, all this stuff going on in my head. And anyway, and I ended up talking to a couple of them afterwards. And this one mom, she's like, yeah, I gave $8 million to this. I know we can all do that. And I'm thinking, yeah, no, not this one. But in my head, and anyway, I ended up talking to just one other mom after. And I said to her, and I don't know why I said it. I said, my son won't let me come up to his room. I couldn't see his dorm, which is, and he's a really good kid. It's not like he's hiding something. I was filled with shame about it. And I'm telling somebody I don't know something that's filling me with shame in that moment. And we're talking, and then she says, my daughter won't let me see her room. And I said, would you have told me that if I didn't tell you? Because you didn't tell me that right away. And she said, no. So because I divulged something that I was embarrassed about, she told me something she was embarrassed about.
Yes.
And I was then able later to have a great conversation with my son. It had to do with his roommates, and it was like their parents weren't in town and nobody's parents were. And it was his reason. It wasn't anything that big of a deal. But this woman and I became friends. Her daughter, we ended up saying other things. I go, oh, my son's dad passed away his first semester. He didn't know anyone here. It was this whole thing. And then she said stuff about her daughter's dad. It was this whole thing, right?
Wow.
Because I divulged and was vulnerable.
Yes, that's what it takes. Yeah.
And so.
So on your website, you have a little self-sabotage quiz. We only have a couple more minutes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Actually, what's even better is I have a clarity and confidence growth scorecard.
Oh, wow.
Where there's all these tools you can do to get clarity and confidence. And I think that there's a quiz. There's quizzes all the time on these things, which is fun. How do you self-sabotage? But I have this growth scorecard, which I think is so fabulous because there's 17 or 18 different tools you can do. And it's just you just go, you do little check marks and see if you can do better 1 week to the next, and see how you feel about yourself, and see if you're getting clarity, and see if you're feeling better about yourself. And it's just where you try to do better 1 week to the next, and it's only against yourself, and you're not telling anyone. And it's just for you. And it's a bunch of little tools that you can do for you.
That's awesome.
Everything is on my website. All the podcast episodes. Marissa G. Franco is the friendship episode that I love. And there's also a really good one on vulnerability and why to be vulnerable. So
give us your contact information. How do people listen to your podcasts? And
it's 52 Weeks of Hope, and the website is 52weeksofhope.com. And I've got a workshop coming up all about how to get clarity and confidence. And there's also right now free confidence and clarity boost sessions that are like 15 minutes each. So you can sign up for those on the website also.
Great. And are you still doing law? Are you still a lawyer?
Yes,
or?
I am. I still have a law practice.
Good. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So give us one more time all the information, how to get in touch with you, just so people will have time to write it down.
Okay. Go to 52weeksofhope.com and you can get clarity and confidence for what it is that you want to do, really, especially if you feel like you're jealous of others, you feel like life's passing you by, and that your inner critic's going nonstop. I've got a lot of tools for you that can help you out.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lauren. This was really interesting. And keep up the good work. Keep up the amazing hope that is keeping things going on this planet for you and for so many others. And again, thank you for all the information that you've given us. And I hope you guys reach out to her because it's just fascinating. Thank you.
Thanks, Royce. Thank you so much for having me on
You are
your show.
very, very, very welcome. Take care.
Thanks.